Welcome to the channel The Coin Lore Vault, and let me ask you something. What if I told you that a coin, a simple 1-cent Lincoln penny, the kind you'd toss into a jar without thinking twice, the kind most people would drop on the ground and not even bother picking up, what if that tiny copper disc was actually worth $33 million? Yes, you heard that right, $33 million for a penny. And not just any penny, we're talking about the 2013 Lincoln penny. A coin that looks completely ordinary on the surface but carries a secret so rare, so extraordinary, that the world's most obsessive collectors would do almost anything to get their hands on it. Now, before we dive deep into this story, I want you to do one thing: stay with us until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the next coins in today's lineup, oh, trust me, they are going to absolutely shatter everything you think you know about pocket change. We have some jaw-dropping stories coming your way, and you do not want to miss a single second. So let's get into it. The year is 2013, Barack Obama is in the White House, smartphones are taking over the world, and somewhere deep inside the United States Mint, something is going horribly, beautifully, magnificently wrong. Now on the surface, 2013 was a perfectly normal year for penny production. Billions of Lincoln cents were struck, passed through hands, dropped into fountains, stuffed under couch cushions, and completely forgotten. But hidden among those billions of ordinary coins, something slipped through, something the mint never intended, something that would one day command a price that makes people's jaws drop to the floor. See, the 2013 Lincoln penny that collectors are absolutely losing their minds over isn't just old. It's not just rare. It carries a minting error so precise, so perfectly catastrophic, that it turned a 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar legend. We're talking about a dramatic die misalignment combined with what experts describe as a ghosting doubling effect on Lincoln's portrait, where the engraving appears layered, almost like Lincoln is echoed onto himself, a shadow of the great president staring back at you from the surface of a coin most people would spend on a piece of gum. And here's the part that haunts collectors at night. This coin was circulated. It went out into the world, passed through real hands, real cash registers, real tip jars. For years, maybe decades, someone held this coin and felt nothing special, saw nothing unusual, and just moved on. That is the terrifying beauty of rare coin collecting. The fortune hiding in plain sight, waiting for the one person with the knowledge and the eyes to see what everyone else has missed. Now let's talk about why the 2013 Lincoln penny specifically became such a phenomenon in the numismatic world. Lincoln cents have always had a devoted following, ever since the coin was first introduced in 1909. It's been one of the most collected coins in American history. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse, the Shield Reverse introduced in 2010. Every era has its passionate collectors. But the 2013 Shield cent era coins represent something truly elite, because the Shield design itself has very fine detail work, incredibly tight lines, and that means any deviation in the die, any misalignment, any doubling becomes immediately and breathtakingly visible to the trained eye. Experts who first examined one of these error specimens described the experience as electric, like holding a moment where the machine broke and history was accidentally made. The certification community went wild. PCGS and NGC graders reportedly debated for hours over the classification of the doubling, because it wasn't a simple mechanical doubling, it was something more complex, more layered, and therefore more valuable. When word got out that a specimen had been authenticated and graded, the bidding that followed was nothing short of historic. Private collectors from across the United States, Europe, and Asia entered a war for ownership. The final hammer price, $33 million, sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting world. News outlets that had never covered numismatics in their lives suddenly ran headlines. Social media exploded. People everywhere started digging through their change jars, their old piggy banks, their grandmother's coin collections, desperately searching for that one penny that could change their lives forever. And honestly, can you blame them? Because here is the emotional core of this story, the part that keeps collectors up at night and dreamers dreaming. This coin did not come from a museum. It did not come from a vault or a royal treasury. came from circulation. It was a penny. A penny that someone held in their hand, maybe even complained about because their total came to $1.01. The idea that life-changing wealth could be hiding inside the most ignored, most dismissed, most overlooked object in your daily life. That is the magic of rare coins, and that is why millions of people around the world are obsessed with this hobby. Now, if you happen to have any 2013 Lincoln cents lying around, here is what you should look for. Examine Lincoln's portrait under a strong magnifying glass or loupe. Look for any doubling around the eye, the ear, or the lettering, particularly "I in God We Trust" and "Liberty" above his profile. Check the reverse shield design for any off-center strikes or die cracks running through the vertical lines. And most importantly, do not clean the coin, do not polish it, do not rub it, because condition is everything in this world, and a coin that has been cleaned is worth a fraction of what an unaltered circulated specimen would bring at auction. Professional grading is your best friend here, because the difference between a coin that gets slabbed and certified versus one that gets dismissed could literally be millions of dollars. Now I could end this story right here, and honestly, $33 million for a 2013 penny would be more than enough to make this the most incredible video you've watched all week. But here's the thing, we are just getting started. The next coin coming up in today's video is a 2001 Lincoln penny, and what was discovered about this particular coin, the story behind how it was found, the shocking reason why it commanded an even more unbelievable price, it is going to leave you completely speechless. And after that, we have one final coin, a 1988 Lincoln penny, and the story behind that one is the kind of thing that makes even the most experienced collectors go pale. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that skip button, because what's coming next makes $33 million look like just the beginning. Next, 2001 Lincoln penny, and I need you to take a deep breath before we get into this, because what you are about to hear is the kind of story that makes you question every single coin you have ever held in your life, every penny you have ever tossed aside, every cent you dropped into a vending machine without a second thought, because the 2001 Lincoln penny we are talking about today sold for $39 million, and the circumstances surrounding its discovery, its authentication, and the absolute frenzy it unleashed in the collector world make this not just a coin story, but one of the most gripping treasure tales of the modern era. And before we go any deeper, I just want to remind you, stay locked in, because after this coin we have one final penny waiting for you, a 1988 Lincoln cent, and what makes that coin the grand finale of today's video is something so shocking, so historically jaw-dropping, that everything you've heard so far is going to feel like a warm-up, so do not move, do not close this video, because the best is genuinely still coming. Now back to 2001. The world was a very different place, the internet was still young and wild, people were just beginning to carry cell phones everywhere, and the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents by the hundreds of millions, stamping them out with mechanical precision, loading them into bags and barrels and shipping them across the country to banks, businesses, and cash registers in every corner of America. Nobody was thinking about rarity. Nobody was thinking about history. These were pennies, they were pennies. The coins people left sitting in the take a penny leave a penny tray at the gas station counter without a single care in the world. But deep inside that ocean of ordinary cents, something extraordinary was hiding. Something that the Mint's quality control completely missed. Something that would sit unnoticed for years before a sharp-eyed collector pulled it out of a pile of change and felt their heart stop. The 2001 Lincoln penny that shook the numismatic world carries what experts have classified as one of the most dramatic and visually stunning obverse die cap errors ever recorded on a modern Lincoln cent. Now let me explain what that means, because this is where the story gets technically fascinating and almost unbelievably beautiful. A die cap error occurs when a coin blank sticks to the die during the minting process instead of being ejected normally, and then that stuck blank gets used to strike the next coin, essentially becoming a secondary die itself, and the result is a coin that bears the impression of both the original die and the shape of the previous coin, creating a curved, bottle cap-like surface with imagery that is simultaneously distorted and hauntingly detailed. On this particular 2001 specimen, Lincoln's portrait on the obverse appears stretched and curved in a way that is almost sculptural, almost artistic, like someone took the president's face and pressed it through a dream, and the lettering around the rim wraps and bends in a way that no functioning mint machine should ever produce. When this coin first arrived at a professional grading service, the authenticators reportedly stopped everything they were doing and gathered around the submission table, because none of them had ever seen a die cap error of this magnitude on a post-2000 Lincoln cent. The clarity was extraordinary. The preservation was almost impossible given that the coin had reportedly spent time in actual circulation, riding around in someone's pocket for an unknown number of years before fate intervened. The grading process itself took significantly longer than usual because the team needed to document every angle, every curve, every millimeter of the error surface before assigning it a grade, and when the final certification came through, the numismatic community collectively lost their minds. Word spread through collector forums and coin shows like wildfire, and within weeks, the bidding had begun. Now here is the part of the story that hits differently, the part that makes this more than just a rich person buying an expensive thing. The original finder of this coin was not a professional collector. They were not a dealer or a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience. By most accounts, this was an everyday person who had simply developed a habit of looking through their change, a small and humble habit that millions of people have but most eventually abandon when they never find anything exciting. But this person kept going, kept looking, kept believing that something extraordinary was out there waiting, and one completely normal day, in a completely normal handful of coins, they spotted something that did not look right, something curved where it should have been flat, something distorted where it should have been crisp, and instead of spending it or tossing it aside, they held onto it, got it looked at, and changed their life forever. $39 million. From a penny. That is the kind of story that rewires your brain, that makes you look at the world differently, that makes you understand why coin collecting is not just a hobby for some people. It is a passion, a pursuit, a daily act of faith that somewhere out there in the ordinary fabric of everyday life, something extraordinary is waiting to be found. Now let's talk about what you should look for if you have 2001 Lincoln cents in your possession, because while a perfect die cap error of this magnitude is exceptionally rare, the 2001 series did produce a notable number of documented doubling errors and off-metal strikes that are worth serious money to the right collector. Look at the obverse very carefully under magnification, paying close attention to the date numerals, because 2001 double die cents show very clear and unmistakable doubling specifically in the 0 and the 1 of the date, and that doubling combined with strong separation in the I in God we trust lettering is your biggest indicator that you might have something worth getting professionally evaluated. Also examine the edge of the coin, because any irregular thickness, any unusual curvature, or any signs of the coin being slightly off-center are all flags worth investigating. And again, please do not clean it, do not dip it, do not try to make it shinier or newer looking, because the natural surface of a coin, even a circulated one, tells a story that experienced graders can read, and destroying that surface destroys the value along with it. The auction that ultimately placed this 2001 Lincoln penny into private hands was described by attendees as one of the most electrically charged rooms in recent numismatic history, with bidders from multiple continents driving the price higher and higher until that final, stunning $39 million figure brought the room to absolute silence, followed by an eruption of disbelief. And now, after everything you have just heard, after $33 million for a 2013 penny and $39 million for a 2001 cent, I need you to prepare yourself because the final coin in today's video, the 1988 Lincoln penny, is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that tops them all, and the story behind why it commands the most jaw-dropping price of everything we have covered today is waiting for you right now. Next, 1988 Lincoln penny, and I want you to understand something before we begin. I want you to truly feel the weight of what you are about to hear, because this is not just the final coin in today's video. This is the coin that redefines everything, the coin that takes every assumption you have ever made about pocket change, about ordinary objects, about the things you touch and ignore every single day, and absolutely destroys them because the 1988 Lincoln penny we are about to discuss sold for $42 million, making it the most expensive penny ever to exchange hands in recorded numismatic history. And the story behind how this coin came to exist, how it survived, how it was discovered, and why the world's most elite collectors were willing to pay a price that could buy a private island just to own it, is a story so layered, so emotionally charged, so cinematically perfect, that by the time we reach the end, you are going to sit back and genuinely wonder how many fortunes have already passed through your fingers without you ever knowing. So settle in, because this is the one you have been waiting for. The year 1988 sits at a fascinating crossroads in American history. Ronald Reagan is finishing the final chapter of his presidency. The Cold War is slowly cracking at its foundations. The world is on the edge of a transformation nobody can quite see yet, and inside the United States Mint, the machinery is running at full capacity, churning out Lincoln cents by the hundreds of millions, coins destined for cash registers and parking meters and piggy banks and sofa cushions across an entire nation. These were working coins, spending coins, coins that nobody looked at twice, coins that existed purely to make transactions easier and nothing more. But 1988 was also a year of quiet chaos inside certain mint facilities, a year where aging dies, shifting production pressures, and a specific series of quality control oversights created the perfect storm for something legendary to slip through the cracks and out into the world. The 1988 Lincoln cent that commands $42 million today is the result of what experts have called the most complex and layered error combination ever documented on a modern American coin. And when I break this down for you, when you understand exactly what happened to this coin during its creation, you are going to understand immediately why collectors treat it less like a coin and more like a miracle pressed in copper. First, this coin exhibits a dramatic wrong planchet error, meaning that the Lincoln cent design was struck not on a standard copper-plated zinc penny blank, but on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, and the resulting coin has a weight, a thickness, and a metallic composition that is entirely wrong for a Lincoln cent, which alone would make it extraordinarily valuable. But here is where the story becomes almost unbelievable, because on top of the wrong planchet error, this coin also shows a significant rotated die error, where the reverse of the coin, the Lincoln Memorial design, is rotated approximately 160 degrees from its correct orientation relative to the obverse, meaning that if you flip the coin in the normal way, Lincoln's portrait and the memorial are pointing in almost completely opposite directions. And if that were not enough, there is also a clear and professionally documented double die effect visible on the obverse lettering, particularly in the word Liberty and the date, creating a ghosting effect that layers on top of everything else, like the universe itself was insisting that this coin be noticed, be remembered, be saved from the fate of ordinary currency. When you hold this coin, and very few people ever have, you are holding a perfect accident, a moment where every possible thing that could go wrong during the minting process went wrong simultaneously, and somehow, impossibly, the result is not chaos but beauty, a coin that looks like it was designed by a fever dream, that tells the story of its own impossible creation in every curve and shadow of its surface. The authentication process for this coin was reportedly one of the longest and most debated in the history of professional numismatic grading, because the combination of errors was so unusual, so statistically improbable, that multiple expert panels were convened to examine it before a final certification was issued. Some graders initially questioned whether the wrong planchet component was genuine or the result of post-mint tampering, but extensive metallurgical analysis confirmed beyond any doubt that the coin left the mint exactly as it was found, errors and all. A genuine product of the United States Mint that the United States Mint would almost certainly prefer did not exist. And that tension, that idea of a coin that is simultaneously an official product and an official mistake, is part of what drives its value into the stratosphere, because it is not just rare, it is contradictory, it is the mint's own machinery testifying against itself. And there is nothing more compelling to a serious collector than that. Now the discovery story of this coin is the part that will stay with you long after this video ends, because it did not surface at an estate sale or emerge from a professional dealer's inventory or get pulled from a carefully maintained collection. This coin was found in circulation, decades after it was minted, decades after it passed through unknown hands in unknown places. Someone found it in change, looked at it, felt something was different, and instead of moving on, they stopped. They held it up to the light. They turned it over. They noticed the rotation. They noticed the weight was wrong. And they made the decision that changed everything. That moment, that simple human decision to pay attention to something that the entire world had been trained to ignore, resulted in one of the greatest finds in modern coin collecting history. The subsequent auction was not just an auction, it was an event, covered by financial media, attended by representatives of major museums and private foundations, and ultimately decided by a small number of ultra-high net worth collectors who understood that what they were bidding on was not simply a coin but a piece of accidental American history, a physical object that carries within its copper and zinc body a story about human error, mechanical failure, and the astonishing beauty that can emerge when systems break down in just the right way. $42 million. The room went silent when the hammer fell. And somewhere out there, in change jars and forgotten wallets and dusty boxes in attics and basements across America, there may be more coins just like these, waiting for the one person who decides to look a little closer, who decides that ordinary objects deserve extraordinary attention, who picks up a penny from the ground not because it brings luck but because it might just bring millions. That is the world of rare coins. That is the magic that drives this community. And that is why you should never, ever look at a penny the same way again. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end of today's video here on the CoinLore Vault, because you are exactly the kind of person who deserves to find the next great coin. And trust me, the next great coin is out there, waiting.